Hello everybody, it's me, Riffraff Hornhelm, and I'm back again with another presentation from the Dwarven Vault. And today we have something, well, it's a little bit different. We frequently have things that are a little bit different. And today we're going to have a tabletop talk, talking about some of the serious things that we dwarves look at when we're looking at gaming, specifically Dungeons and Dragons. So, we've all had to think about this a little bit, and we came up with a few questions that we thought were good for all of our Hornhelm brethren here to give as input for what we think about these subjects. So, what kind of things did we talk about? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you right now. Bet you that's a surprise, right? So, I will go ahead and tell you what the first one is, and it's name 3 things that you like about Dungeons and Dragons 5e. So, I'm going to start way down at the other end of the table here and talk to Plinth, one of our intrepid Dwarven brothers here within the HornhelmClan. And Plinth, what can you tell us on that?
Well, thanks for having me back first. I'm happy that I get back with my brethren. It's been a minute.
Aye.
But with 5e, I like the fact that there's more than one dwarf option. That's a really quick and easy way to win me over there. You know,
as a dwarf, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, the fact that fighters really are one of the strongest groups in there, that we can play them in various different ways. There's a lot of flexibility there.
Uh-huh.
And then whenever it comes to it, you know, all of the wiggly finger classes that are out there, yeah, they all get to move to the back, and they're very weak whenever it comes to it. I love it. I love that.
Well, I think those are very beard-based decisions, you know, only something that a dwarf would really think about on that side. And I think that's very true. Very, very good points you've raised on that side. So let me ask, let's just go up the table here. Chit-chat, what do you think are the 3 things that you really like about 5e?
Well, for 5e, as Plinth said, it's great to see dwarves finally getting their due as fighters. They are one of the more popular races to play in 5e, and unfortunately elves. But dwarves are finally getting their due. And I enjoy the fact that fighters have so many options now. You can be so many subclasses of fighters. And again, magic use, it's there, but the dedicated wiggly fingers, they're at the back, where they belong, unless we're using them as cannon fodder.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. I think that's very, very interesting to hear that we have 2 people who are much more into violence and mayhem than they are into magic. People after my own heart. I think that's a very dwarvish outlook, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised to find that 2 of the dwarves at this table feel that way. But now, let me ask Sandy here. Sandy, what do you think about the 3 things that you like the best in 5e Dungeons and Dragons?
Absolutely. The first thing, I think, I'm going to keep it simple here, right? When I'm role-playing, I'm going to be a miner every time, because you got to do what you know. Therefore, when I'm mining, and I'm out there, and there's a cave-in, and my character's on the brink of death, and I can't come back, all I got to do is sleep it off, and my bones are back to normal again. That's probably my favourite thing, because then the next day, back to mining ore.
That's an excellent thing. So, name a couple other things you like about 5e.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, well, the next thing I think I like most about it is that you put a lot of the power back in the hands of the DM. And you don't have to worry about the rules lawyers that are coming after you for every small thing that you're trying to do. It's a breath of fresh air, you know. And they say it right in the rules there. You know, when in doubt, talk to the DM. He'll make a decision.
I'm all about power to the DM. Power to the DM.
Indeed.
Like
Especially when you're arguing about them elves and, all these things. Nah, you gotta give it to the dwarves every time. And I think for the third one, I'd have to say I'm not big on doing a lot of math. You know, I like mining ore. So that's just a simple 1, 2, 1, 2. But, keeps it simple. There's been a lot of additions that there's just a lot of numbers that go into it. And I've got to say, keeping it simple is the way to go.
Well, that
Great
makes-
call.
Aye.
I think that's a very, very sensible answer there, Sandy. I can't disagree with that at all. So these are very valid viewpoints of 5e. I mean, from my standpoint, 5e, what do I like about it? They have the most beautiful illustrations I've seen in any Dungeons and Dragons release so far. So I like good artistry, so I'm a big fan of the artistry for the monsters and characters, and that's a really important thing for me. Number two, what I really like about 5e is the fact that you have so many options. That I think is very important if you're somebody who is really struggling with trying to find a type of character. You can read all these wonderful options that they have there, and I guess play one of those. Last but not least, but I certainly see that they're intending to return more power to the DM. To me, that's never been an issue. You're the DM, you take it. I mean, that's just the answer. So,
Here.
so I don't see any problem with that. But I think it's a good thing that they're finally giving way the way they should to the ultimate power in the game, which of course is the Dungeon Master. So, of course, when we talk about this game, we also have to talk about other games out there. Most importantly, 1E. Because I remember the day. Well, the decade. The century. We won't get into too much here. But the bottom line is that it's a very important subject here is to also ask, well, okay, this being the 50th year of Dungeons and Dragons, and with all the hullabaloo going on around us, I mean, dwarves aren't into that part very much, but we try and contribute where we think it's important. So we're going to tell you from a dwarven perspective what we like about Dungeons and Dragons 1E. So I guess keeping up the same rotation, we're going to go back down.
Come back to me.
Back
All
to
right.
Plinth. Tell us 3 things that you like about Dungeons and Dragons 1E.
Well, first off, 1E, what I really like about it is that level of tension whenever you play. 5E, it feels very, very soft, that you could always come back from it. 1E, very, very final. There's a lot of things that you turn around and play, and, there is higher stakes, it feels. Another part of it is I'm one of the newer dwarves, but I did grow up in an era where I played things that, every blade of grass could kill you. Every time you turn around, something dangerous was there. That, once again, leaning into that level of tension, but the idea that your decisions matter, that there is, consequences for every step that you take in the game. That's been a real big part of it. And then I think how much it comes down to the way the character's requirements whenever you do create a character. The little bit of crunchiness that you do run into where dwarves are certain things, orcs are certain things, elves can only be certain things. I find that absolutely fascinating. I love that's part of the game, and had been.
Very cool.
So.
I like these insights into the game. Of course, having been exposed to it back in the day, it was a different evolutionary process for me as a gamer than it is for younger dwarves, like some of these dwarves here. Well, actually, all of these dwarves here. Okay, I'm really feeling old now, but that's okay. So for me, it's interesting to see how that evolved for them. Now, Chit Chat, name 3 things that you like about 1E Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, some of the things that I like about 1E, first off, not every race can do everything. Dwarves are fighters. They can't even really cast magic unless they have a magical device. And I think that's just proper. We don't really want to mess too much with wiggly finger type things.
That's fair.
Aye.
Second, I feel that there's more of a true representation. Everybody's so damn chummy in 5E.
I like chubby better.
Not fair. But they're making dwarves and elves friends in 5E, and that was never the case in 1E. They might work together. They didn't like it.
That's very true. I can't disagree with that one at all. The races have all become much more playable. I don't think we're supposed to use the word races anymore. It's something else now. And but the bottom line is that now you can pretty much play anything. By the Allfather's beard, I can't believe that somebody would want to even play a kobold. A kobold? I mean, a D&D kobold, much less the Japanese giant talking dog thing. I don't understand that. But I'm old, so...
We know.
Is that 300, 400?
The last thing that I feel that 1E is really great for is that you feel like you've actually accomplished something in the game. Yes, it might be tense, you might not know if you're going to survive, but if you pull through, then by the Allfather's beard, you know you earned that experience. And it was a truly telling adventure.
And here all along, I thought you guys were telling me I was too easy on you. Okay, now I reverse psychology. I like this. It's not going to affect my next dungeon, just so you know.
I try.
Too bad.
Okay. So, thank you very much for that chit-chat. And Sandy, on the same subject, what 3 things do you find to be likable from 1E Dungeons & Dragons?
Well, the first thing I say is I personally like the plethora of deities. It's
Big words.
quite in depth, I must say. There's a lot of gods. Not that I'd go, anywhere outside of, Thor or anything like that, but I'm just saying, for those that want to have a good selection, that's there, nice and proper.
They do indeed. More than one vending machine full, I'm sure of that. So
Absolutely.
it's amazing. What other things do you like about?
Well, the second thing, and this is personal to my experience, I don't know if this is something that you do only on your own, but there's the luck system that I'm quite fond of. I have to say it. Every once in a while, I need some help there.
For
More
our
than a
viewers, in my homebrew version of the dungeons, I allow people to have a set opportunity to roll under their luck under trying circumstances when pretty much all other options have failed. And the luck is not a guarantee. You still have to make a roll, but you establish it every time you play. So when we have a new session, you roll luck for your characters for that session. And yes, it's fair to say here that Sandy has represented more than one character who seems to have had a real grasp of how to use luck. Not anything else, mind you, but the luck part worked out really
That's all I
well.
need.
Apparently so.
Turn off the intelligence.
So that's just in my dungeons. That's
Yeah,
not part of
fair.
the game, but I'm glad that you enjoyed that part, Sandy.
It's well done.
Is there anything else that you like about 1E?
Sticking on the topic of the gods themselves, I've got to say they're pretty brutal. And, I've watched a fair number of my friends, some of them playing elves. I don't know what they're thinking, but that's fine. All the better, because when they get in trouble and they talk to their gods, oh, almighty, is it funny to watch them get their due. Oh,
Well,
too good.
I'm really glad you enjoyed that part. I have to say that as a totally uninvolved observer, that I too have enjoyed when elves are discomfited, shall we say.
Aye.
I think that it's only fair because they're elves. And that's the only thing that I feel is very necessary to explain on that side is they're elves, we're dwarves, get over it. So these are all great comments that we've had about 1E and 5E and what we like. And of course, from my view, 1E is the most flexible. I like that part of it. I think it also doesn't automatically assume a certain level of competency, it forces you to demonstrate it. And I like that part too. 1E is not perfect. The original game is not perfect. And all of us who've DM'd from the earliest days of Dungeons and Dragons have made, in many cases, some substantial changes to the game to better suit the desires of your players. The principle of the game is important, whether it's 1E or 5E. But what people can't ever forget is that as a group, you're getting together to have fun. As a DM, if you're not creating and administering fun, then it's wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. You need it to be fun. And the players help you to determine as a DM what works for them to make it that way. So these are some of the things that we've talked about that we really like about 1E and about 5E from a Dwarven perspective. Now, let's go the other direction. This time, Sandy, I'm going to start with you.
Uh-oh.
Dungeons and Dragons, 5E.
Aye.
Name at least one thing that you really dislike.
Ooh, something that I really dislike. You know, I have to say, as someone who's DM'd, it's going to be funny because this is going to go against what I said was one of my favorite things for myself. It's actually the healing system. When you sleep, you're all better. And boy, does that make it difficult to make it a challenging environment when you're trying to DM. Not too much of a fan there.
Yeah, I would. My list is rather long when it comes to things that I dislike about 5e. Maybe it's my age or length of time playing the games. But one of the things to me is that if you're hurt until you get fixed, you continue to hurt, and it does affect you. You can't take all of your hit dice and damage and whatnot and go down to 1 point and still be standing in a battle swinging. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
At least not to me, and it won't in my dungeons. What they do now varies a bit, but it's much more permissive than the way the game was originally envisioned. And continuing damage seems to be a thing of the past. Something where you take damage and unless you get it properly healed, you continue to take damage on a either daily or round by round or turn by turn, whatever it may be. So yeah, that's changed a lot. So I think that's a very, very valid comment that you made there. And it's something that I understand opens the door and makes it easier for people to play the game. But if you make it too easy for the players, for their characters, how much of a real sense of accomplishment do you have? At least from my view. But once again, I know I'm old, and it's okay. I'm not over it, but I can't change it. So, Chit Chat, name at least one thing that you really dislike about 5e.
What I really dislike about 5e is the fact that the system has taken away all the creativity of the players. And what I mean is that all these actions have charts and tables in the player's handbook or the Dungeon Master's Guide saying what your double halfling can do in such a situation. And I feel that just hinders the game. As a DM, I personally prefer a person saying, this is what I want my character to do in this situation, and here's why he should be able to do it. And you just don't have that anymore in 5e. You have too many tables saying, if you're going to take a long-range shot with a crossbow at a dragon's eye, here's what you need to roll. And that, to me, takes away power from both the player and the DM, and I just find it a massive headache dealing with when I DM games.
That's very fair. That's very fair. I think that you are correct and have hit on. It's interesting to me, at least, to hear your guys' comments because you're much more into 5e play than I am, and you hear so many people who are new to the game who are very excited about it. And to me, I keep coming away with the impression that it's good. I I mean, it really is. It's good, folks. You want people to be excited about the game. I wish it wasn't quite so set. I wish there was more freedom within the game to go outside the boundaries. Whenever you contain things too closely with rules, at a certain point, it doesn't become much fun anymore. But that's at least my viewpoint. So it's a very valid comment. Thanks, Chit Chat. I think that was a worthwhile thing to say. What do you think, Plinth? Same subject.
The real problem I have is I completely agree with everybody at the table as those being the major weaknesses of the system, because there doesn't feel like there's any carryover. It feels like it stabilizes so many things. Takes away from character agency. Takes away your players' opportunities to feel integrated at the table. And whenever you do that, and let's be fair, what they did with 5e, they tried to make it approachable for folks that have no background, so they tablize it all over the place. This, we're a table of seasoned adventurers in various ways. We're looking at these weaknesses, they see it as strengths, but for me, it really does break down to the healing system. That's the number one problem I have with 5e. There is no carryover. There is no capability of, long-lasting pain unless you use alternative rules that are more obscure by it, or for a DM, and make it much
debilitating poison.
Exactly. Injuries, there are other mechanics that they did put out there, but they're extremely hidden inside the books themselves. And whenever you do that, it makes it unapproachable. It takes away some of that realism that we feel at the table, at least I feel at the table whenever I'm playing 1E. I know whenever I lose an arm that it has an effect in the game, but it's not clear in 5e. So for me, that's a big part of it. And I go back to it. There's a loss of tension, that loss of fear. So fear may not be the right word for it, but definitely that feeling of adventure and consequences at the table. There's not much in 5e. Is that how I feel most of the time?
That's very fair. I think that's a very fair comment. It's interesting to me to hear so much commonality on the comments from all three of you. I think that's pretty cool. The options that you have within the game are that much, to me at least, more difficult to track because you have so many different options that you have to go to a table for. And you shouldn't have to do that. And it should be, you should be, number one, a good enough DM to look at what a person's doing, compare that to their character and their capabilities, and say, this is rational or not. And if it is rational and you're concerned about the outcome, that's what die rolls are for. Rather than instantly going to a chart and saying, well, roll here, well, yes, you get to do X, Y, Z, and that's it. Not a fan of that part. But honestly...
You can always rule zero it,
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. The DM, just in case there's any doubt about this, okay, this is something that's really important. The DM is the master of all space and time, okay? Within the context of the game, if he tells your character that every third step you fart, then every third step you fart.
Which one of my characters was
what
that?
DMs
I didn't realize that was a consequence. I do that normally.
Keep it up and it will. Oh, well, okay, that's... Okay, I don't know what to say there. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, that's bad. So
I'm not sorry.
I have to honestly say that my answer for 5e is different than you guys, though I think all of what you're saying is absolutely correct. To me, the biggest problem I have with the game is suddenly everything is magical. Every character race has magic. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're a left-handed monkey wrencher, there's a spell for you. There's a magical ability for you. That, to me, undermines the very core of the game, which was always about if there was magic, it was either learned or innate, and it was very limited, with an emphasis on humanity being the principal participant from a player character standpoint. I'm not in favor of every character, race, and class having their own magical speciality. I just don't see that as being right. Not really speciality, a magical ability. In some cases, they're very small, I understand that, but everybody has them. I didn't realize they were giving these out at the store. It seems way too easy. You don't work for it. If I had to say an overall thing I don't like in 5e, there's way too much that everybody gets as player characters that you don't have to work for. I think that changes your perspective of the game. So we've talked about what you like, and dislike so far about 5e, but we haven't talked about your dislikes for 1e. So, Sandy, go ahead. Why don't you tell us something that you really dislike about 1e?
I think for me, the biggest thing is that I feel like I'm losing out on the ability to play certain characters, such as the Paladin, because of how tethered they are to their beliefs and their oaths. It makes it difficult to be in a group with people. And so, I just never had the opportunity to explore that. That's might be one of my biggest dislikes.
That's a very fair comment. Unless you're with the right kind of group,
we never are.
Yeah. Based on you guys, I'd say that you're more likely to be struck by lightning 500 miles underground.
Aye, chaos reigns.
Not going to happen. But I do think that that's a very valid comment. The Paladin is one of the most difficult ones to choose, and you have to have the right group, and sometimes you even need dispensation from your deity or the temple and the head guy at the temple in order to go with the party. Having said that, once you're in the party, you also can cause a lot of problems. I've seen this. I have played with paladins in my parties before, and because of their single-mindedness on certain subjects, it was a great way of getting the whole party into trouble. Mind you, Sandy, I've seen the players that, or the characters rather, I gotta get this right, the characters that you played, and I think causing trouble in like job lots is one of your favorite things. So I can understand why you miss out on playing the Paladin. I think that all makes sense. But a very valid comment, definitely. Now, chit chat. Name one thing about 1E that you really dislike.
One of the things that I truly dislike about 1E is the rigid nature of alignments. And by that I mean, if for whatever reason you choose lawful or a true neutral alignment, you have shackled yourself considerably. Because if you're lawful good, lawful evil, lawful neutral, or true neutral, you have to act in that capacity. Now we know that real life has vagaries and gray areas, like...
Well, be chaotic.
Well, this is true, but in its own way, that's limiting. Like, sometimes you want to be the hero, but the alignment of, say, the paladin is so limiting that you can't have your own free will. And that, to me, as a player, is far too limiting. You can't act outside of your deity.
Well, yes, you're absolutely correct. I guess I don't see it the same way that you do on that side because it's a conscious choice, number one. And number two is you're conferred additional abilities and insights and so forth because of how single-minded you are within your alignment, because your deity trusts you. So he will give you that magic flaming sword or whatever it may be, which you wouldn't have gotten as a regular player, even if you had taken the same pledge. So, yeah, I do understand what you're saying. It is very limiting, and if you compare that to the kind of wild, wild west that it is in 5e, that makes sense that you could find that a difficult thing to deal with. But having said that, it is one of the ways the game is, and that's part of the evolution. This isn't about what's right or what's wrong. It's contrasting what's happened over the years as we've gone through 50 years worth of evolution within the game. But I do think it's a valid comment, especially for somebody coming from the 5e world to the 1e world. You will find the alignments and the way in which they're expressed through the character classes to be much more absolutist than it is in 5e today. Definitely. So, last but not least, Plinth, what's one thing you really dislike about 1e?
The character sheet.
Okay.
Just to get to it, right? I mean, if we look at it, you know, there are a lot of abilities that are in the books. What we can see, what we're not always familiar with, coming from different editions, it's hard to keep track of it. Even with the sheets that were originally involved, some of the custom sheets that we're working off of, I can say that one of the strengths that I've seen from 5e is that they do have a nice character sheet. 1e, it's very difficult.
After 50 years, they should have gotten it right.
You
by
would
now,
hope,
I
right?
would think, you know?
I'm saying
Okay.
it, but you know,
Yeah,
one
that
of the
makes
things
sense.
that it's always a little difficult is where I am on this. You know, where am I rolling against? Now, I will admit that is one of my favorite parts of the game, though. What am I rolling against? It's a strength and a weakness at the same time, but it's one of those that just tweaks me a little bit every time I run into it.
And that's very fair, I think. I don't think it's necessarily bad that the sheets are not laid out as well. I mean, to me, it aligns perfectly, frankly, with the original 1E rule books, whether it's the Player's Guide or the Dungeon Master's Guide. You try and find any of the tables in there and how they relate to one another and where they're buried. I mean, that's a mystery anyways.
I would say that
So
cross
I
makes it
think
tough.
that in the spirit of that, the sheets are awesome. But yes, I agree with you. They could definitely be laid out better. Try not to be too mad at the custom ones since I made those back in the late 1970s.
It's not bad.
And they weren't, they were just as I was thinking of the game at that time. So,
You've doomed us all.
Oh, they're great. They're fantastic. Not a thing to change about them.
you'll notice that in the next table talk session that we have.
You'll never
All
see
of
me
these
again. Nice to
characters will
see
be
you.
replaced. That's
Nice
that's
to
the
know
way
you,
this
Clint.
works.
Been an
Brother.
honor. Been an honor.
Well,
So, seeing as this has really been good discussion. I've been enjoying this. I'm looking forward to putting this together and putting this out on video. That technological thing. We're dwarves. Even the dwarves are good at it. Or well, no wait, Sandy's pretty good at it. Oh well. Any case, what we're going to do now is have one thing. Okay, if you could improve the game today. Okay, if you were going to make Dungeons and Dragons overall better, what one thing do you think would make the game better?
that's tough.
That's a good question.
I'm going to lead off on this one, okay?
Aye.
And give you
Please
an answer
do.
since you know.
Need a minute.
At least where my mind is at on this. Okay, this is Dungeons and Dragons. So we've been talking about this from a dwarven standpoint as Hornhelms here, all playing the game. I can tell you what would I think improve the game more than anything else. Simple. Get rid of all player character races except dwarves.
Aye.
If you did that, you'd sell 2-3 billion copies. Easy. Easy. I'm just saying. So that's my view. So, Sandy, if you had to pick one thing to make Dungeons and Dragons better, what would that one thing be?
Well, firstly, I have to admit that you didn't want to remove the elves entirely as a race. But I suppose by making it all dwarves, that accomplishes the same thing.
Well, I said get rid of all of the races.
That's
except-
true. That's true.
I was trying to be fair and not come across as being bigoted towards elves.
Oh,
I probably failed, but
I forgot we're
tried.
not supposed to. My fault. Well, back to what I was saying. If I had to pick one thing, I think first I'd like to say that 5e is going in the right direction. I think there's a lot of improvements. I think that it's really opening up to people's imaginations and things like that. I think that's also their hindrance personally. It's getting too complicated. There's constantly
That's
a new
very fair question.
race
or
and a
comment.
a new ability and a new spell, and it's very hard to keep track of. So I think that's mine.
Simplify. The KISS principle. Gotta like that. Gotta like that. Chit chat. What one thing would you do?
If I had to do one thing to improve 5e, I would bring back imagination to the game. Not everything needs a table. Not everything needs to be predetermined. You are limiting yourself if you do so. And I think it would be a huge improvement to the game to minimize the tables. Yes, you're always going to need some effects, poison, injury, what have you, that need tables.
So, no, wait a minute. So you're saying go back to 1E?
I mean, it wasn't broke.
Okay. I like that answer. That's a good answer. That's a good answer. What about you? Plinth, what do you think? What would improve the game the most?
More dwarven lore.
More Dwarven lore.
There's so many books out there today. None of them are focused on the dwarves.
I think you and I are
Not
on
a
similar
single one.
paths. They more Dwarven lore and less other character races. And yeah, I think dwarves rock. That's what we say. So we're going to take over. We think that's the right direction for the game. Certainly, all the comments today have been very valid and interesting and spot on when it comes to talking about the things we like and dislike about 1E and 5E and doing them in contrast, because I've been flogging my poor Hornhelm brethren here to play 1E, where we're doing it as a first principles game, and it's something that I would encourage more people to do. It's worth understanding the differences between the games. The biggest thing is to make sure that whichever game you're playing, that you're enjoying it. Whether it's 5e or 1e, the whole idea is to go out and have a good time. So go out and have a good time. We thank you very much for joining us here today and listening to our Dwarven drivel. And we look forward to seeing you all again in the future. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please give us a like, consider subscribing, share with your friends. By all means, leave us comments. We can ignore those. And we look forward to seeing you all again real soon. In the meantime, take care, everyone. And remember,
Dwarves rock!